Hello, everyone. My name is Louis Emery, and I am senior counsel at the law firm of Robert Ray PLLC in Washington, D.C. We are a minority-owned small business firm specializing in export finance, aviation finance, and commercial practice. I am delighted to have with me today David Fiori, who is the Vice President of the Transportation Division at the Export-Import Bank of the United States. Having spent over 20 years at the bank as the Assistant General Counsel for Transportation, I know David well, and I'm delighted to have him here to explain to us a very interesting new initiative at the bank, the program to move EXIM Bank into the domestic finance realm. So David, welcome.
Thank you, Louis. It's great to be here today to speak about EXIM's domestic finance initiative, or as we like to refer to it as the Make More in America initiative.
Can you sort of describe to us the MMIA program and what it's all about?
Sure. The EXIM's Make More in America initiative grew out of a recommendation from the Biden administration that EXIM Bank explore the possibility of implementing a domestic finance program that would finance the establishment or the expansion of U.S. manufacturing facilities and infrastructure projects in the United States that would support current and future exports. So the objective of by our financing programs is to support domestic companies and strengthen the U.S. manufacturing base and the U.S. supply chain base across various industries, at the same time expanding our export capacity and continue to meet EXIM Bank's mission of supporting exports. And so EXIM's board of directors approved the program or the initiative, I should say, in April of 2022. So by being able to support a domestic export capacity, EXIM Bank can now provide a range of financing products across the entire spectrum or life cycle, if you will, of export finance, starting with domestic financing to help a company build a factory, and then moving into our working capital and supply chain finance programs to support the actual manufacturing process, and then ultimately supporting export financing, which is our traditional bread and butter, through our medium and long-term loan guarantee and insurance products.
So the board approved the program back in April of 2022. So that's almost 2 years ago. Can you fill us in on what actually has been going on in terms of developments in the program or actual deals done under the program?
Sure. Since you're correct, the board approved the deal in April of the program, I should say, in April of 2022, and since that time we've been busy implementing the program. We've developed an implementation group that's working on the various issues related to implementation of the program. We developed a business plan. We have been meeting with customers, potential customers, lenders, exporters, trying to get the word out about the program. And we've also updated our website, and there's when you go to our www.exim.gov, on our landing page, there's a Make More in America button that you can hit and click on, and it'll take you to a subset of all our programs and that related to this initiative. And so we've been actively meeting with companies and developing a robust pipeline of transactions.
Okay, so this obviously is a whole new realm for EXIM Bank, which has been focused on export finance. From what kinds of U.S. companies are you beginning to see some interest in this initiative?
Actually, from a lot of different companies. We've been seeing a lot of new emerging technology companies. For example, battery energy storage companies, also just general manufacturing, steel manufacturing, other forms of basic manufacturing. We've seen a lot in mining, solar panels, modular housing, plastics manufacturing, and a lot of minerals, lithium extraction, a lot of businesses associated with batteries or the production of batteries or the use of batteries. It's very exciting. At this point, we've got a pipeline of it's grown quite a bit, of about $3 billion. Most of the deals potential deals in the pipeline are small, relatively small, I would say under 100 million, but there are a couple of large project finance type mining projects that are quite extensive. So it's a nice array and a good cross section of industrial industries and sectors.
Fascinating. I'm not sure how many folks out there might be familiar with the EXIM Bank. Can you tell us a little bit about what the process is for folks who want to apply to the bank to try to see whether they might qualify for this program?
Sure. The way it works is we've got the Make More in America team. We've been fielding about 3 to 5 week Teams calls a week to screen potential transactions, and you can reach us through our field offices or through our website, and or through lenders, or some of our potential transactions are coming through lenders or potential major suppliers who have sub suppliers that might need our support. So we have an initial screening call and discuss the project with the potential borrower. They tell us about the project. We tell them about the program, how it works, what the requirements are, the policy objectives of it. And then we sort of get an assessment. And this could be like more than one, several phone calls, maybe followed up with PowerPoint decks and other things. So we want to get a sense of the potential deal. We want to make sure it fits within the policy parameters of the program. And I can go into those in a second. And then if we think it fits within our sort of strike zone of risk tolerance, we would encourage them to submit an application form, and we can help them with the actual filling out the application, then submitting the application to us. And then it would go to a loan officer in one of our underwriting divisions based on the type of transaction that we're talking about. And it would then go through our regular, vetting and due diligence and underwriting process to be considered by the appropriate approving authority within EXIM Bank. Sure. And I can also talk a little bit, if you want, about the type of due diligence that we do. As you mentioned, all EXIM transactions, we do a legal due diligence, a financial review, a technical review of the project, an environmental review of the project. And then we write up a series of, a board memorandum that is then presented to our board of directors for their consideration and hopefully approval. And it's been, we've done a number of transactions already. We've got 2 transactions that have already been approved and are in documentation and disbursement stage. And so we're really proud of that. And I think that we've done quite a bit in the past 2 years, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more this year.
2 questions. One, you mentioned various divisions in the bank. And again, for folks who may not be very familiar with EXIM, could you sort of elaborate on what the different divisions at the bank are that might consider these types of transactions?
Sure. As you mentioned, I'm the head of the transportation division. So any transaction involving aviation or transportation would come to my team. I'm also, for the purposes of Make More in America, working on any corporate transaction. So where the risk of the transaction is a corporate buyer, then that would be underwritten by my team. If the transaction is a true project financing where there are needed off-takers and the project itself is going to pay for repay the loan over the life of the project, and it's a true project finance expertise is needed to underwrite the transaction, then it would go to our structured and project finance division, who are experts in doing those kinds of projects all over the world. So based on the type of risk and the type of borrower that the project involves, that would determine which underwriting division within EXIM Bank would cover the transaction. And in each case, there would be an environmental review and a lawyer assigned to the transaction to look at any legal risks. It's interesting because now when we refer to local counsel, we're talking about, the state of Vermont or the state of Texas rather than Azerbaijan or, South Africa. So it's sort of a different mindset for us. The underwriting is essentially the same. The interesting challenge is that we had never done we hadn't done any underwriting in domestically. So it's sort of a new approach, and there's some new rules and regulations that we need to be mindful of that don't apply to our normal export finance program. So it's kind of a new world for us, but it's really interesting and really exciting. And the folks who are working on it are really really interested and dedicated to making it successful.
Well, as a lot of folks may know, in the past, Congress has been very sort of interested in the level of business that the bank has done for small businesses. Do you think that this program will be able to service a reasonable number of small businesses along with maybe other larger project finance type deals and help the bank sort of to achieve those sort of small business goals?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, a lot of the companies that we're working with are small businesses. A lot of them tend to fall into what I would call early stage companies where, under this program, we can't finance R&D or intellectual property. That's not what we're for. We're not venture capitalists, right? We're looking for companies that have developed a product. It's close to being commercially marketable, but it's not yet bankable commercially without support from a government financing support of some sort. So our goal in this program is to try to help those kinds of companies bridge that gap between a viable product that they just need to scale up production or expand production and get them over that gap to the point where they can be bankable on their own without needing EXIM bank support. And a lot of those companies tend to be small businesses. And so that's another exciting aspect of this, that we're going to be increasing our support, we hope, for many small businesses. Now, as you point out, yes, for the project finance transactions, for the very several $100 million type project finance, yes, that's more likely to be a project company that's sponsored by a large, conglomerate or a large corporate, like a major, Fortune 100 type company. But a lot of what we're seeing are small companies, and so that's really another exciting aspect of this program.
David, you mentioned that there are certain internal sort of qualifying aspects to a deal. Can you sort of go through some of those and what they might be, so folks might be aware of what kinds of clients they might want to direct towards EXIM Bank?
Sure. Okay, so we are the Export-Import Bank, so there has to be, even though it's domestic financing, there has to be some hook or some connection with exports. So we call that our export nexus. And so in order to justify EXIM Bank support, let's say a small business is going to expand its production of a certain type of equipment. And so we're going to be financing that, say for 30, 40 million, whatever. The company then needs to commit to us, and we discussed this during the application process, that they will be able to meet an export nexus. If it's a small business, then the export nexus is 15% of future production, and it doesn't over the life of the loan. So let's say it's a 10-year loan. Over the 10-year period of the EXIM financing, the export nexus would be 15%. And that could be measured in terms of dollar sales or in terms of volume of production, whatever works best for that industry or that company. Now, I said, for a small business, it's 15%. It's also 15% export nexus threshold if it is a company that's involved in one of our transformational exports that we have a special mandate from Congress to emphasize our support for. And that would be things like battery storage, artificial intelligence, water sanitation, some other projects like that. There's a list of them on our website. There are 10 of them. And I can't remember them all off the top of my head. And then but if it's not a small business and it's not a transformational export, then the export nexus is 25%. And so that's the one export. The idea is that we are connected to our main mission of supporting exports. This is part of what I was referring to earlier as the export capacity. Then the other policy parameter is the jobs created. Most of our mission is to support jobs through exports. So as part of the amount of financing that we can make available under this program, the borrower needs to show us how many jobs they expect to create, again, over the life of the project. And so we measure that in terms of job years. So if it's going to take 1 year of production and they'll have 10 people working for a year to construct a factory, let's say, and then 9 more years to repay the loan, and there are going to be 100 people hired, that would be like 900 job years. So we would add all that up and multiply it by about $200,000 per job year. And that would be the maximum amount of financing that we could offer. I should say that those number of jobs would qualify the borrower to borrow. Of course, that's just the outside parameter, but the real determinant is the creditworthiness and how much is needed for the project. But in most instances, so far with the hundreds of companies that we've talked to, most of them are projecting to create enough jobs to qualify for the amount of financing that they're asking for us. And again, this is part of what we'll discuss with a company during the early stages when we're having face-to-face conversations and discussing the potential application to get a sense of what kinds of jobs are going to create, where are they located, what and how that affects or how that relates to the amount of financing that is being requested. So those are the two main parameters. We also, as I mentioned earlier, as a U.S. government agency in domestic financing, unlike our export financing programs, we have to also comply with certain things like the National Historic Preservation Act. So we have to do our due diligence there. That's part of the environmental review, environmental and social review. We always do environmental reviews for our export projects, but here we have to meet the National Environment Protection Act, NEPA, and make sure that we're in compliance with that. So those are the main parameters and things that we need to be mindful of and adhere to in terms of the policy, in addition to our usual technical analysis of the project, underwriting, legal due diligence, and all that, credit underwriting, all those kinds of things.
I know in traditional EXIM Bank deals, the bottom line for doing a deal or approving a deal is always reasonable assurance of repayment. Right. Is that still the sort of the controlling factor in terms of these transactions?
Yes, our standard of reasonable assurance of repayment, which is a statutory requirement, as you know, that Congress has required, remains unchanged. The challenge, or I should say the ability to get there in different ways is what and be creative in getting to reasonable assurance of repayment makes it very interesting. Because if you think about it, because we're financing domestically, we don't have certain risks that we would have in our normal export finance programs. Like we don't have political risk, we don't have currency transfer risk, we don't have risk of the things associated with cross-border lending, right? So on the one hand, we have less risk lending domestically, but on the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these are early stage companies, a lot of them are small businesses. So we have some other and might be emerging technologies that might not be fully proven or might need certification from regulatory authorities of some sort. So on the other hand, there's other risks associated with this program. But overall, the job of the loan officer and the deal team is to assess, take a holistic approach to the deal and figure out, okay, overall, where are the risks? Are they acceptable? Can we argue that there's reasonable assurance of repayment so that our board is comfortable approving the transaction and moving forward with it? So the standard is the same. How you get there, it's up to you to be creative, you, the loan officer, to be creative and figure out ways that you can, or identify the risks, figure out mitigants to those risks, and then analyze it and say, yes, overall on balance, yeah, I think this can work. This works, and then we can get there. So it's a kind of it's the same concept, but it's the fun part is figuring out different ways to get there. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Fascinating. You said the board has approved 2 transactions. Can you give us a little bit of background on those?
Sure. And you can find press releases on our website, so I'm not giving away state secrets. The first transaction approved was a small business in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, with operations in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, called Aquatech. It was a $5 million direct loan to support their factory expansion and laboratory upgrade. They do lithium extraction for use in batteries and production of batteries, which is a very important focus these days. And then the second transaction was for an eVTOL company in Vermont called Beta Technologies that is developing electric-powered conventional takeoff and landing as well as vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. And we refinanced a final assembly facility outside Burlington, Vermont, to support their efforts to decarbonize aviation. And as the transportation division, as you know, Louis, we like to finance aircraft and all things aviation. So that was particularly exciting and fun transaction for me. So that transaction is in disbursements, and Aquatech is about to start dispersing. So we're really excited with the progress that we've made on these 2 deals already, and our board was thrilled to be able to get some deals across the finish line, and we're looking forward to bringing several more to board for their consideration later this year.
Okay, so if folks out there want to contact EXIM Bank, do they contact you, or is there a different way to get into the bank to sort of get a process like this started?
There are multiple ways. They can visit our website at www.exim.gov and click on the Make More in America logo on the landing page. And also depending on, and then you send us an email at domestic.finance@exim.gov, and our business development team will reply to you and we'll set up a call, a meeting. They can also reach out, depending on where you are in the country. We have a number of regional offices in places like New York, Los Angeles, Houston, Miami, Chicago, and I'm forgetting something. I'm forgetting somewhere, I know. But anyway, the regional offices are all on our website, and you can reach out to one of our regional offices and they can start the process through them and they can get in touch with us. And so those are the main ways to get in touch with us, and then we can start discussing a potential project.
Is EXIM Bank doing this on its own? Are you doing it along with folks like the Small Business Administration or the Energy Department in their programs, or is it simply a standalone program?
I'm glad. That's a good question. It's a standalone program, but you raise a good point, because I forgot to mention that there are quite a few other agencies that have different types of programs that are focused on different niches or different objectives. One of them is the Small Business Administration, and again, as a part of the federal government, we don't want to compete with fellow agencies, right? Our sister agencies. If a company is a small business and the amount of the loan fits the small business parameters, then we would like encourage them to go to SBA, right? But sometimes the small business might need more than the limit that SBA can finance. So in which case they should come to us, or it might not be a small business, so then they're not able to use SBA. And with regard to LPO, the Department of Energy's Loan Program Office, they are able to do deals that don't have an export nexus. So if you're strictly domestic, well then, and we discover that during a face-to-face Teams call, well then obviously we'll guide you to, we'll encourage them to go to LPO. But if you do have an export nexus and you think that you are going to be able to meet our parameter of exporting a certain amount of your production, well then, yes, then you can meet with us. And we'll be happy to continue working with you. So we try not to overlap and compete with our sister agencies and try to find the most appropriate fit for the potential deal. But in any case, that's part of what we discover as we're talking to these companies, and to make sure they're finding the right program within the many programs that are offered now by the government.
So let me ask this: if a company, let's say, is already working with LPO and they're doing a domestic program that would otherwise sort of maybe fit within your parameters, but they don't have an export nexus, but they are now saying maybe that would be a good business move for us, can they come to you and talk to you about the potential that they might have to move into the export side of things, and see whether EXIM Bank would be willing to sort of support them in that move?
Well, if they're working with LPO and they've got an application already in process with Department of Energy, but they might have a potential export sale. Well, like any exporter, I mean, there's no reason to, if you're already down the road with LPO, you might as well stay down that road. But if you have an export transaction, a specific opportunity, we have programs like our letter of interest, where we could issue a letter of interest to finance your foreign buyer once you export the product. I mean, that is always open to any exporter, whether they're using SBA or LPO or any other chips under the Department of Commerce. That's always, our export finance programs are always open to any U.S. exporter. So that's always an option for anybody.
I was thinking more someone already had an LPO loan in place and they were manufacturing, but they decided that maybe they wanted to expand their manufacturing facilities so that they could expand into the export world. Would that be something that you would sort of consider in that context?
It could, yeah. If they already had a loan with Department of Energy and they wanted a second loan and decided to come to us because they're now going to export a second production line that's going to export, and meanwhile the first export line is through LPO, financed through LPO, that's for the domestic market, yes, then that would make sense, where you could come to us for a second line because you can now meet the export nexus requirement that EXIM Bank has, that LPO doesn't have. So, and we could also provide financing for your foreign buyer if you're also trying to market to that foreign buyer as part of your ramp up of your, let's say, expansion of your production line or whatever. Yeah, then we can try to satisfy both needs of the company.
Well, David, I thank you very much for your time here. This is fascinating, sort of listening to EXIM Bank moving into a whole new realm of domestic finance. I mean, exciting for us who know EXIM Bank well, have been following it. I'm sure exciting for you guys at EXIM Bank as well. So Again, thanks very much, David.
Well, thank you very much. No, it's an exciting program, and we're really excited about the progress we made to date and the progress that we can continue making in the coming year. And it's great to talk to you. And thanks for having me.
Take care, David. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.